Let's start with a simple truth. The opinions of others do not define your potential. Your effort does. Every day, people are exposed to feedback, judgment, and opinions, some well-intentioned, some discouraging, and some entirely irrelevant. And while it's natural to want validation, the trap is believing that validation equals value. It doesn't. If you rely on applause to measure your progress, you'll always be adjusting your course to match someone else's map. And the problem with that, they're not living your life. They're not building your future. You are. There's a fundamental difference between feedback and control. Feedback is data. It's input that helps us assess and improve. But when you start tailoring your actions, your direction, or even your identity based on what others expect, you've handed them the blueprint to your life and step back from the construction of your own success. So what does success really depend on? Effort. Effort isn't glamorous. It doesn't trend on social media, but it is consistent. It's honest. It's the kind of work done when no one's watching. It's the decision to stay focused when doubt creeps in. It's showing up again after rejection. That's what moves the needle. That's what separates dreamers from doers. Let's be clear, success doesn't mean the same thing to everyone. For some, it's wealth. For others, it's meaning. For many, it's freedom. But regardless of the shape it takes, it's built on effort, not opinion. The world may offer commentary, but only your actions drive change. Here's the paradox. The more you focus on effort and ignore unnecessary noise, the more others' opinions tend to shift in your favor. Why? Because people respect consistency. They trust authenticity. When you show that you're grounded, that you know your why, and that you're willing to outwork your fear, they notice. But by that time, their opinions don't matter. You've already succeeded. Let me give you an analogy. Think of yourself as a sculptor. Opinions are like the wind. They blow in every direction. You can't use the wind to carve a statue. You use a chisel. You use pressure. You use intent. Your tool is effort. That's how masterpieces are made, not from gusts of opinion, but from focused labor. And what about failure? Because it will happen. That's where opinions tend to get loud. But remember, failure is data. It's not defeat. It's an invitation to learn. And those who build success understand this. They view setbacks not as signs they're unworthy, but as signals they must improve. And improvement takes, again, effort. You are not obligated to live a life that others understand. What you are responsible for is showing up, being consistent, and staying committed to your growth. So next time you're about to change your path to fit someone else's expectations, stop and ask, will this move me forward, or simply make someone else more comfortable? Success that's built to last isn't shaped by comfort. It's shaped by effort, persistence, and a clear sense of purpose. Others can advise. Others can doubt. Others can share or criticize. But none of it replaces the discipline it takes to move forward inch by inch, day by day. In the end, the most powerful thing you can do is out-effort your excuses and outlast their opinions. If Fev keynotes from the speech, effort is the most consistent predictor of success, not approval, recognition, or popularity. Relying on others' opinions to shape your path is a guaranteed way to drift from your true potential. Authentic success is built in private moments of discipline, not in the spotlight of public praise. Failure is not a verdict, it's information. How you respond to it matters more than how others react to it. When you focus on effort, you gain freedom from judgment, and that's where real confidence and success begin. Effort is the most consistent predictor of success, not approval, recognition, or popularity. This is a truth that often gets overlooked in a world obsessed with visibility and validation. People tend to associate success with being seen, with being acknowledged, with having their talents recognized by others. But history, experience, and personal growth all point to a different reality. The people who consistently succeed are those who keep showing up, doing the work even when no one is watching and no one is clapping. Effort doesn't always produce instant results, but it always builds momentum, and momentum over time is what leads to meaningful progress. The challenge is that effort is quiet. It doesn't attract attention the way success stories or viral moments do. When someone wins an award or hits a milestone, the world notices. But few people see the countless early mornings, the lonely nights, the discipline, the setbacks, and the failures that were faced along the way. Those moments don't make headlines, but they are the foundation. If you pull away the layers of any successful individual, athletes, entrepreneurs, scientists, artists, you will find one thing in common: effort. Not talent alone, not charisma, not luck, just the relentless decision to keep going, keep learning, and keep striving. It's easy to believe that someone else's recognition of our ability is what opens doors. And yes, external opportunities can help, but they rarely come without someone first putting in the work to be ready for them. Recognition is often a delayed reaction to consistent effort the world catches on later. What matters more is who you become in the process of trying, failing, learning, and persisting. It's the internal transformation that effort creates that's the real measure of progress. Your character, resilience, focus, and adaptability are shaped not in the spotlight, but in the silence of discipline. People who focus on recognition as a measure of success often fall into the trap of performance-based self-worth. They tie their value to applause, to approval, and to how well they are perceived. But those things fluctuate. What doesn't fluctuate is the effort you put in. That's something you control. And that's why effort is more reliable than opinion. Effort gives you agency. You may not be able to control outcomes, But you can always control input. You can always choose to try again, to dig deeper, to practice more intentionally. Moreover, effort compounds. The work you put in today might not show results immediately, but over time, it builds a foundation. Like compounding interest, the value of consistent action increases exponentially. Every small improvement, every lesson learned, every failure endured and analyzed becomes part of your skill set, part of your resilience. And eventually, it adds up in ways that outsiders can't see. They might look at the moment you arrived and call it talent or luck, but you'll know it was effort stacked day after day without fanfare. Another key point is that effort trains your mindset. It shifts the focus from outcomes to process. When you prioritize effort, you start measuring progress differently. You no longer wait for someone to give you permission to feel proud. You stop comparing yourself to others and start competing with your own previous self. That shift in mindset is powerful. It means that even on bad days, even when results aren't visible, you still find purpose in showing up and giving your best. That's where true confidence is built, not in accolades, but in knowing you did the work. It's also worth remembering that recognition can be deceiving. People can be praised for work they didn't do or criticized unfairly for things outside their control. But effort is real. It's not subject to public opinion. It's something you carry with you. It builds your identity and your capability, and it prepares you for whatever comes next, because effort sharpens your skills, toughens your mindset, and builds your habits. Those are the tools you need to navigate uncertainty, to recover from failure, and to adapt when the path changes. So while popularity might get attention and recognition might open some doors, neither of those things sustains you when things get hard. Effort does. The grit to keep moving, the decision to improve, and the drive to do the work even when no one is paying attention. Those are the real indicators of success. In a world that often values appearance over substance, choosing to value effort puts you on a different, more sustainable path. It builds something no one can take from you: the capacity to create, to persist, and to grow beyond what others think you're capable of. Relying on others' opinions to shape your path is a guaranteed way to drift from your true potential. The moment we begin to measure our worth or our direction based on what someone else thinks, we lose connection with our own inner compass. Opinions are everywhere: friends, family, society, social media. They all have something to say. Some may be encouraging, some may be discouraging, and many are simply projections of their own fears, insecurities, or limitations. The problem arises when we start internalizing those voices and allowing them to override our instincts, our passion, and our purpose. When people pursue approval, they often end up living a life that pleases everyone but themselves. And the danger in that is subtle. You may look successful on the outside, but deep inside, there's dissatisfaction, confusion, and a growing distance between who you are and who you pretend to be. That distance creates anxiety. It causes burnout. It leads to resentment. Because no matter how much praise or recognition you receive, if it's not aligned with your values, it will never feel fulfilling. That's the cost of living by other people's expectations. You lose the connection to your own authentic ambition. Every individual is born with a unique set of talents, insights, and potential. But when you shape your goals to fit someone else's version of success, you suppress that uniqueness. You mold yourself into something you were never meant to be. And over time, the world misses out on the value only you could have created because you were too busy chasing a version of success that didn't belong to you. People often forget that opinions are shaped by experiences, biases, and perspectives that are not universal. What might seem impossible, someone else could be completely attainable for you. But if you accept their limitations as your truth, you automatically restrict your own growth. There is a deep difference between receiving feedback and depending on approval. Feedback is useful. It helps you grow, improve, and adapt. But depending on approval means that you need permission to proceed, and that robs you of your independence. It becomes a habit. You start questioning your every move. You wait for validation before acting. You hesitate when decisions don't align with popular consensus. Slowly, the fear of judgment becomes more powerful than the desire for progress. And that fear becomes a prison. You stop experimenting, taking risks, or dreaming big because you're too afraid of how it might look or what people will say. It's also important to understand that opinions change constantly. What is admired today might be criticized tomorrow. Public perception is fluid, and trying to keep up with it is like chasing the wind. You will exhaust yourself trying to stay in everyone's good graces. And the irony is, even after doing everything right, people will still have something negative to say. That's the nature of public judgment. It's fickle, often uninformed, and rarely aligned with your long-term vision. So if you anchor your self-worth to something so unstable, your confidence will constantly rise and fall based on others' reactions. The more you build your identity on external opinions, the more fragile it becomes. It means your confidence is only as strong as the latest compliment. The moment criticism comes, everything falls apart. But when your path is rooted in your own purpose, your clarity doesn't waver in the face of opinion. You may listen, you may adjust, but you never lose sight of your core. That inner stability comes from knowing why you're doing what you're doing. And that why can't be handed to you by anyone else. It has to come from within. People who achieve lasting success often have one thing in common. They trust their inner vision even when others don't understand it. They're not reckless, they're focused. They're not arrogant, they're committed. And that kind of inner trust is built over time by choosing to believe in your values over the noise of opinions. When you take that path, you realize something powerful. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need to believe in yourself enough to keep moving, even when others doubt you. Letting go of the need for approval doesn't mean you become indifferent or closed off to others. It means you stop giving their words more weight than your own voice. It means you understand that your purpose doesn't require consensus to be real. The world may not understand your journey, but that's because it's not theirs to understand. Your path is yours to walk, and your potential is yours to unlock, not by waiting for permission, but by daring to move forward on your own terms. Authentic success is built in private moments of discipline, not in the spotlight of public praise. There is a widespread illusion that success is about being seen, being celebrated, and being known. But that is only the result, the surface. What truly shapes success happens in silence, away from applause cameras and recognition. It happens in the decisions you make when no one is watching. It happens when you choose to stay consistent even when progress is invisible, when you choose to keep practicing even when the results aren't showing, and when you choose to believe in the process even when the outcome is uncertain. We live in a world that glorifies outcomes and overlooks effort. People are celebrated for what they've achieved, but rarely is the same attention given to what it took to get there. The early mornings, the missed events, the repetition, the failures, the doubt, these things never trend. They don't make headlines, but they are the invisible forces behind every real accomplishment. Discipline isn't glamorous, but it's powerful. It's not about being perfect. It's about showing up when it's hard, pushing through when it's uncomfortable, and refusing to settle when it would be easier to quit. Real success is not about doing what's easy, it's about doing what's necessary, and that often requires sacrificing short-term comfort for long-term growth. It means saying no to distractions, resisting the urge to compare, and choosing practice over performance. People who build something meaningful know this. They understand that the work that really matters, the work that changes lives, builds legacy, and inspires transformation doesn't happen in public view. It's forged in solitude, in consistency, in countless quiet hours where the only motivation is inner drive. There is something profoundly important about what happens in those quiet hours. That's where identity is built. That's where mastery is developed. That's where you learn not just your craft, but who you are within it. In those private moments of discipline, you confront your limits, you wrestle with doubt, you discover your capacity for perseverance. And with each choice to keep going, to stay focused, you reinforce a powerful truth that you are not dependent on external validation to keep growing. Your motivation becomes internal, your mission becomes clear, and your self-respect becomes stronger than your need for approval. This is why so many people appear successful on the outside but feel lost inside. They've built their lives chasing visibility instead of depth. They've shaped their habits around applause, and when the spotlight fades, they no longer know who they are. But those who build success authentically are not shaken by the absence of recognition. Their foundation is steady because it was never built on performance. It was built on preparation, persistence, and patience. They know that growth takes time. They know that doing the right thing is often a lonely choice, and they make it anyway. Discipline is not a one-time act. It's a habit. It's the quiet decision you make repeatedly to study instead of scroll, to reflect instead of react, to build instead of boast. And over time, those small decisions compound. They build resilience. They build confidence. Not the kind of confidence that comes from compliments, but the kind that comes from knowing you've done the work even when no one else saw it. That's a deeper, more sustainable kind of success. One that can't be taken away because it's part of who you've become. There's a misconception that discipline means living a rigid, joyless life. But in truth, discipline brings freedom. It frees you from distraction. It frees you from regret. It frees you from the constant need for approval. Because when you know you've been consistent, when you know you've honored your goals in private, you no longer need to prove anything in public. That internal validation carries more weight than any amount of applause ever could. It keeps you grounded when things are uncertain and humble when things go well. It's also important to understand that the spotlight doesn't build you. It exposes you. If you step into visibility without having done the private work of discipline, you'll be unprepared to handle what comes with attention. But if you've spent time growing, learning, and building your foundation, then recognition becomes an opportunity, not a burden. You're not defined by the praise or crushed by the criticism. You simply continue doing what you've always done, showing up, staying focused, and honoring your process. In the end, the people who achieve lasting success aren't the ones who chase the spotlight. They're the ones who embrace the silence. They didn't wait to be seen before they started doing the work. They did the work first, and that quiet commitment, day after day, choice after choice, is what ultimately sets them apart. Failure is not a verdict, it's information. How you respond to it matters more than how others react to it. Most people fear failure not because of the experience itself, but because of what they believe it says about them. They treat it like a final judgment, a label that defines their worth, their intelligence, or their potential. But failure is none of those things. It is feedback. It's data that reveals where you are, what's not working, and what you haven't yet mastered. It's a signal, not a sentence. And the people who achieve meaningful success are not the ones who avoid failure, but the ones who understand how to read it and respond to it. Every attempt carries a lesson, whether it works or not. When something doesn't go the way you planned, it doesn't mean you're incapable. It means there's something to adjust. It could be your strategy, your timing, your execution, or even your expectations. But without failure, you would never know what needs refining. It provides a clearer view of reality than any amount of praise ever could. Praise can be comforting, but it often tells you what you want to hear. Failure, on the other hand, tells you what you need to know. And when you begin to view failure this way, it becomes a tool, not a threat. The danger arises when people define themselves by their failures. Instead of seeing an event that happened, they internalize it as a statement about who they are. I failed turns into I am a failure. That shift in language creates a deep and often paralyzing form of self-doubt. But the truth is, failing at something does not make you a failure. It makes you human. It makes you someone who's trying, learning, and evolving. Everyone who has ever built anything of value has failed, some repeatedly. What separates them is their response. They don't allow failure to shrink them. They use it to grow. Our response to failure determines whether it becomes a stepping stone or a stopping point. If you treat failure like the end, you'll stop trying. But if you treat it like input, you'll improve. The most resilient individuals are those who stay curious in the face of failure. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? They ask, what can I learn from this? That shift in mindset turns failure into a catalyst. It pushes you to reflect more deeply, to question your assumptions, and to develop strategies you never would have considered had everything gone smoothly. It's also important to recognize that failure reveals the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And that gap is not a bad thing, it's a guide. It points you toward growth. It tells you what skills to build, what habits to strengthen, and what beliefs to challenge. It sharpens your focus. Without that feedback, you might keep doing the same things, expecting better results, unaware of what's truly holding you back. Failure interrupts that loop. It forces you to pay attention. It demands that you either adjust or remain stuck. And that moment of choice is where growth begins. The opinions of others during your failures can be loud. People may judge you, mock you, or even distance themselves. But their reactions are not the truth, they are interpretations. What matters far more is your interpretation. If you listen only to their noise, you'll become discouraged and disconnected from your mission. But if you stay grounded in your values and purpose, those opinions lose their power. You begin to realize that failure isn't something to hide, it's something to use. You stop performing for approval and start learning for improvement. That's when your potential truly begins to unfold. Some of the most creative, innovative, and impactful breakthroughs come after failure. Why? Because failure forces you to think differently. It challenges your assumptions. It encourages you to explore paths you might not have considered if everything had gone as planned. In that sense, failure expands your thinking. It broadens your perspective. It humbles you and makes you more adaptable. And in a rapidly changing world, adaptability is more valuable than perfection. The ability to respond with clarity and resilience is far more important than the ability to get it right the first time. What's often misunderstood is that success and failure are not opposite ends of a spectrum. They are deeply connected. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the process. You don't become successful by avoiding failure. You become successful by using failure, by turning every misstep into a moment of growth, by refusing to let setbacks define your trajectory, and by trusting that the lessons you gain through failure will equip you for the next step forward. When you start to view failure as information, you gain freedom. Freedom from perfectionism, freedom from the fear of judgment, and most importantly, freedom to keep going. Because now, failure is no longer something you're trying to escape. It's something you're willing to learn from. That mindset doesn't just change how you handle obstacles. It changes who you become on the journey. When you focus on effort, you gain freedom from judgment, and that's where real confidence and success begin. The need to be judged favorably by others is something deeply human. We want to be seen, heard, understood, and appreciated. But when that desire becomes the primary reason we act, we begin to trade authenticity for approval. We start shaping our choices based on how others might react rather than what aligns with our values and purpose. That is a dangerous pattern because it creates a fragile sense of self. One moment of disapproval can shake your entire belief in what you're doing, and that instability keeps you from growing. Effort, however, puts the power back in your hands. When your focus is on doing your best, giving your all, and staying consistent regardless of external validation, you become grounded. You stop seeking permission to act. You stop trying to impress people who aren't even walking your path. You no longer base your decisions on how they will be perceived, but on how they will move you forward. That shift in mindset is subtle, but it's powerful. It moves you from living reactively to living with intention. People who are overly concerned with judgment tend to hesitate. They spend more time worrying than doing. They second-guess their abilities, delay important decisions, and avoid risks not because they lack talent, but because they're afraid of what others will think if they fail. This fear can be paralyzing, and it keeps so many capable people from ever stepping into their full potential. But when you choose to focus on effort, you bypass that fear. You shift your energy from outcome to process, from pleasing others to building yourself. You recognize that people's opinions are not something you can control, but your commitment is. There's a quiet confidence that grows when you know you've done the work. It doesn't need to be spoken or proven. It's the confidence that comes from discipline, not display. When you give your best day after day, your self-worth begins to anchor in something deeper than applause. It anchors in the knowledge that you are becoming stronger, wiser, and more capable, regardless of who notices. That internal validation creates resilience. It gives you the courage to keep going even when you face rejection, setbacks, or criticism, because you no longer need the approval of others to believe in your direction. Judgment, especially in the age of social media, is constant. People are quick to form opinions, often without context or understanding. They may see only a small piece of your journey and make assumptions. If you live your life trying to manage those opinions, you'll find yourself constantly shifting, bending and editing who you are to fit what others expect. But if your foundation is built on effort, on showing up, on growing, on improving, you won't be swayed by fleeting comments or misinformed opinions. You'll stay true to your course because your focus is not on being seen a certain way, but on becoming a certain kind of person. Effort creates clarity. When you're focused on your input, on what you can give, how you can improve, and what steps you can take, you spend less time comparing yourself to others. You realize that someone else's path, pace, or praise has nothing to do with your journey. That clarity brings peace. You're no longer distracted by the noise around you. You're focused on your work, your goals, your mission. And in that space of clarity, you find the freedom to experiment, to take risks, and to push your limits without the fear of being judged for not being perfect. Real success is not built on performance for the crowd. It's built on personal alignment. When you know you're doing the work with integrity, that you're staying committed to your values, and that you're pushing yourself toward growth, you become unshakable. The crowd may cheer or criticize, but you don't crumble or inflate with either. You stay focused. You stay grounded because you've learned that judgment fades, but growth remains. And the growth that comes from effort is not dependent on anyone else. It's yours to own. Effort is one of the few things entirely within your control. You can't control outcomes. You can't control timing. You can't control other people's opinions. But you can control how hard you try, how consistent you are, and how deeply you're willing to commit to the journey. That kind of ownership gives you freedom, the freedom to move forward without fear, the freedom to fail without shame, and the freedom to succeed without needing permission. It allows you to step fully into your potential, not because others say you're ready, but because you've proven it to yourself through your actions. That is where lasting confidence begins, not in being judged as great, but in knowing you gave your greatest. Success is not defined by the noise around you, but by the effort within you. It's not about how others see you, praise you, or judge you. It's about how consistently you show up, how deeply you commit to growth, and how courageously you stay aligned with your values. The opinions of others may come and go, and failure will surely cross your path, but neither has the power to shape your future unless you let it. What does shape your future is your effort, day by day, choice by choice. The private discipline, the decision to keep going, the strength to learn from failure, and the freedom to build your path without seeking approval. These are the real markers of success. When you choose effort over opinion, you stop performing and start becoming. And that is where your true power and your real success begins.